All right, welcome to the next set of notes. We're talking now about the Constitution. We've already talked a little bit in class about the Constitutional Convention and what led to the writing of the Constitution. Well, now we're going to actually talk about what actually is in the Constitution. How is it set up? So first, we're going to look at the basics. The Constitution begins with a preamble. There's 7 articles that set up how the government will work and how it's organized. And after the articles, there are amendments. Currently, the U.S. has 27 amendments to the Constitution. We're not going to go over this part of it, but we're going to talk about the 7 articles, the basic meat of the Constitution. First, though, a quick little video.
Down on paper and called it the Constitution, and it's been helping us run our country ever since then. The first part of the Constitution is called the Preamble and tells what those founding fathers set out to do. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty, to ourselves and our posterity do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. In 1787, I'm told our founding fathers all sat down and wrote a list of principles that's known the world around. The USA was just starting out a whole brand new country, and so our people spelled it out. They wanted a land of liberty, and the preamble goes like this. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty, to ourselves and our posterity do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, for the United States of America.
All right, so continuing on then, the preamble, guys, is just the beginning of the Constitution. We'll go more into it in class, but it's just the introduction, basically. So that was a little Schoolhouse Rock video about the beginning introductory part. Article 1. Article 1 sets up the legislative branch, which is also known as Congress. What does Congress do? Congress makes the laws. Congress is made up of 2 houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. And what does Congress do? Congress has the power to collect taxes, regulate trade, print money, borrow money, and declare war. The House of Representatives is based on population. So in total, there were 435 members of the House. The number of people for your state that is in the House is different for every state. Okay, some states have a lot, some only have one. It just depends on how many people live in the actual state. You must be 25 years old to be in the House of Representatives. You must have been a citizen for 7 years, and you have to live in the state that you represent. That does not mean that you have to have been born there. It just means that you currently have to live there. I was born in New York. I now live in Florida, so I would have to be the Florida representative. You serve 2-year terms in the House of Representatives. Every even year, you are up for re-election. The Senate. The Senate is based on equal representation, so you get 2 in every state. Florida has 2, New York has 2, Wyoming has 2, Idaho has 2, Minnesota has 2. You name it, you have 2 representatives in the Senate. You must be 30 to be in the Senate. You must be a citizen for the past 9 years, and you also have to live in the state that you represent. In the Senate, you serve for a total of 6 years. So people who are in the Senate actually serve longer than the president does, which we'll get to on the next slide.
And now, another fact of Congress. When you look at Congress, ever wonder, what the heck goes on in there? Sorry. Number 1, Congress passes laws, from how fast you can drive on highways, to whether Basset Hounds should have a national holiday. Number 2, Congress decides how to spend our money. Should we spend our money to go to outer space, or to build more national parks? Number 3, Congress shapes foreign policy. The President may be the commander-in-chief of the military, but it's Congress that has the power to declare war. Congress also deals with things like trade policy and foreign aid. So next time you go by the U.S. Capitol, you'll know what the goes on in there. And that's another fact of Congress.
Okay, so, as colorful as that is, it's a fun little way for you guys to start thinking about, what does happen in Congress? That's some of the things that we talked about on the previous slide. So, next is Article 2, which is the executive branch, which has the president. The president carries out, sometimes it's referred to as enforcing the law. You must have been born in the U.S. to be president. You had to have lived in the U.S. for the last 14 years. That's not an or, that's an and, right? You had to be both. You must be 35 years or older, and you must serve 4-year terms. You serve 4-year terms, pardon me. And you could not serve over 2 terms. This is added later to the Constitution, but today, nonetheless, it's true, so I've put it here. So serve 4-year terms, can't serve more than 2. You can also serve up to 10 years, but that's a different story. It has the power to veto or overturn laws passed by the legislature. Also, the president has to act as the face of the nation. The president can make treaties, appoint many government officials, act as commander-in-chief for the military, and sends ambassadors to other countries. When we talk about acting as the face of the nation, that really refers to, when other countries look at the United States and think of our government and the leader of our government, they're not going to think of Congress. They're going to think of the person who is the president. He acts as the face of the country. Article 3 is the Judicial Branch, which is also known as the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court reviews and interprets the law. It's made up of 9 different judges. The judges are each appointed by the president and serve for life. So the current president will nominate a new Supreme Court justice when one retires or passes away. They hear court cases that challenge current law in order to make sure that they are fair and go along with the Constitution, right? Does this violate the Constitution or not? That's the main function of the legislative branch or the Supreme Court. Here's a quick little chart. If you want to jot this down in your margins, I would highly recommend it because we're going to be doing something similar in class. Basically, guys, the Constitution is what sets up the legislative, executive, and judicial branch. The legislative branch is made up of Congress, which is the House of Representatives and the Senate. The executive branch is made up of the president and therefore the vice president. And the judicial branch is made up of the Supreme Court. Here's another little video for you.
And now, another fact of Congress. Like a tree, our national government has 3 branches. First, there is the President of the United States, called the Executive Branch. The President is like your school principal. He makes important decisions on things like the environment and health care. He's also the Commander-in-Chief of the military. A second branch is Congress, called the Legislative Branch. The main job of the Legislative Branch is to debate and pass laws. They also oversee the activities of the President. Finally, there is the court system, or the Judicial Branch. Sometimes people disagree about what laws mean, so we ask judges to help us decide. The Supreme Court is the ultimate judge of the land. These three branches of government work together to form a complete system, and that's another fact of Congress.
Okay, so checks and balances. Each branch has procedures in place to make sure that the other branches do not become too powerful. The president can veto laws from Congress. Congress must approve the people that the president appoints to government positions, including Supreme Court justices. Congress can overturn a presidential veto with 2/3 of the vote, and the Supreme Court can declare laws unconstitutional and strike them down. This is just a way to ensure that one branch does not become more powerful than the other, and it really kind of balances everything out so that all the branches play an equal part in running the country. Here's a nice little chart. Once again, if you want to jot this down, if it's hard to read, that's okay because we're going to come back to this in class, but you might want to jot this down in your margins as well. And of course, another video. There's lots of quick little videos in this one.
And now, another fact of Congress. Our country was founded on the principle of balance, that no branch of government could dominate another. For example, Congress is responsible for passing laws, but it's up to the president to okay them. The president nominates judges, but Congress must approve them. Judges can declare laws unconstitutional, but Congress can remove judges from the bench. This system of power sharing is called checks and balances. But it doesn't stop there. We balance responsibilities between the federal government and the state governments. We balance influence between big states and little states. We balance rights between the needs of the individual and the needs of everyone. The resulting system might look like a complicated maze of boxes and arrows, but it's really quite simple. And that's another fact of Congress.
Okay, so the other articles, guys, 4, 5, 6, and 7, are smaller articles. They're not as big as the first three, but they're equally as important. So Article 4 is about the states. It says that all states will honor the laws of other states. Criminals will be sent back to other states, and it set guidelines for new states to join the nation. If you remember when we talked about the Articles of Confederation, a lot of these things that are in Article 4 were the strengths of the Articles of Confederation. If it worked in the first government, why would you throw it out for the new one, right? They kept the things that worked well, and a lot of those reappear in Article 4. Article 5 deals with changing the Constitution, right? There's two different ways you can go to change the Constitution. Really, there's the Congress, representatives, and senators must vote on the change. There's also the path that says that 2/3 of the states must vote on the change as well. Changing the Constitution or adding an amendment to it is not easy. It's a difficult task, but intentionally so. They don't want to frivolously change the Constitution. They want it to be important enough that enough people agree to get it done. Article 6 deals with authority, right? It guarantees that the Constitution and its laws and treaties to the United States are the supreme law of the country. So if you look here, right, the Constitution is the highest one on this step, right? Nothing can surpass the Constitution as far as what is the supreme law of the land. Article 7 deals with ratification. Article 7 isn't really relevant anymore because once the Constitution was ratified, it kind of doesn't matter, okay? All it says is that of the original 13 states in the United States, 9 had to accept the Constitution before it would officially go into effect. And then, of course, once it does go into effect, then we don't really need Article 7 anymore, but it's there nonetheless. Okay, one more.
And now another fact of Congress. Our government is like a big 3-layer cake. We have local government, state government, and national government, often called federal government. But your local government doesn't handle foreign affairs, and your federal government doesn't handle trash pickup. Local government handles local issues like police, water, and building permits. State government handles issues about your state, such as education, health care, and recreation. Federal government handles national issues such as national parks, the military, and space exploration. The U.S. Congress is a part of our federal government. This system of dividing responsibilities among governments is called federalism. And that's another fact of Congress.
All right, and that's it for this set of notes. Don't forget margins and your reflection. Have a good night.